That's beautiful, people. Actually, keep doing that, please. Who's ready to unlock their super brain? Raise your hand. How many of you came here to really master your mind? Anybody here have too much information and too little time? Anybody here have books on your shelf you haven't read yet? And it becomes shelf help, not self-help? How many of you came here today to have a better memory? Raise your hand. How many of you forgot why you came here today? Have you ever done that? Have you ever walked into a room of your own home and then just forgot why you're there? Yeah. How many of you ever read a page in a book, got to the end, and just forgot what you just read? Anyone feel a little absent-minded? Like senior moments are coming way too early? Yeah. How many of you have ever misplaced things like your wallet, your purse, your car keys? Or if not your car keys, something much larger like your car? You ever see people in the parking lot using their car alarm like GPS? Trying to figure out where they parked their car that day. And how many people have trouble remembering names? Have you ever gotten somebody's name and then seconds later the name just disappears out of your mind? Right? How important is it to do that, to be better at remembering names in business? A little bit or a lot? A lot, because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? So I'm going to share some of these strategies. Remain standing, actually. This is awesome. Everyone do this. I want you to take your hand or your elbow and just raise your opposite knee and just go back and forth, cross. The first lesson I want to share with you is as your body moves, your brain grooves. You actually get smarter. And so this is something out of educational kinesiology. I do this before every Zoom meeting or before I need to study or prepare for a presentation or a podcast. Something called cross crawls. So when you cross the midline, it forces communication between your left and right brain, helps you to focus, helps your executive functioning, helps you with your attention. And now do this, shake out your hands and just massage your earlobe with the opposite hand. Everyone do this, make sure your neighbor's doing this. Opposite hand, do the other one also. And I want you to inhale and squat down, exhale, come up. Are we getting this on video? Inhale, go down. Exhale, come on up. It's like what you do in Orlando. Inhale, go down. Exhale, come up. And with your $1 billion smile, keep smiling. And then come on up, shake out your body. All right, have a seat. I'm gonna encourage you to take some notes. My goal here, how many of you traveled to be here today? Raise your hand. Wow. Okay, so my intention, let's set the intention right up front. I want to pour into you so much that, you know what I want you to, my dream is for you to be able to talk to the team that produces this. And let's give them a hand, by the way. People don't realize how much goes on behind the scenes for months in order to be able to create an experience like this. So many moving parts. But my goal is for you to tell them afterwards, like, wow, my goal is I want you to feel like you got so much from my talk right now that you feel it was worth your time, your money, your travel just for this talk. Yeah, all right? So that's my intention, is to give you so many practical, powerful, proven tools to make your life easier by upgrading your number one wealth building asset, which is your brain, right? So I encourage you to take some notes. I'll give you at least 20 tactical things, science-based, a lot of it, things that have worked for me and my clients, our team. I've been doing this for 32 years. I'm in my 50s now. How to be able to stave off brain aging, how to focus, how to improve your memory, read faster. We'll talk about all of this. Now, as I go through this, here's the thing. You don't learn best when we're talking about learning. I believe that the number one skill to master in the 21st century is our ability to learn rapidly. All right? Your ability to learn rapidly and translate that learning into action is the ultimate competitive advantage, bar none. Because let's say there was a genie could grant you any wish, but only one wish. what would all of you wish for? You would wish for what? More wishes, right? If I was your learning genie today, and I could grant you one learning wish to become an expert, a master at any one subject or any one skill, what would the equivalent of asking for more wishes be? Is be able to learn how to what? Learn. Because if you could learn how to focus, read faster, understand, remember things, think clearer, retain, act on it, what can you apply that to? Everything in your life gets easier, right? It's what they call lead domino. The first domino you hit, everything gets easier. Everything else, because if you could focus, remember, retain, read faster, think clearer, you could apply that towards money, marketing, management, right? Martial arts, music, Mandarin, everything gets easier in your life, right? And the faster you could learn, the faster you could earn, all right? Like, yeah, look at your neighbor, say, the faster I can learn, the faster I can earn. Say it. So write that down, and we're gonna start with that as a base, okay? Now, I'm gonna pour into you right now. What I'm gonna ask you to do is remember that knowledge by itself is not power, right? It's a myth. Knowledge has the potential to be power. It only becomes power when you what? When you apply it, when you utilize it. And so my goal here today is not only just to give you some strategies that's going to make your life a whole lot easier, more successful, your family, your team, I hope you bring this all back to them, but also get in the act of implementation. That's really, how many of you have Limitless, my book Limitless? Wow, thank you. So this book used to be a book on methodology, how to learn languages, how to remember names, how to give speeches without notes, how to remember sales scripts and client information and product information, all how to focus, right? It was all tactical. But what I realized was a lot of people know what to do, but they don't do what they know. Have you ever noticed that? So what I'm going to share with you is this Limitless Model. It's an elaboration on the book that you have. We have over 1 million copies sold over the past few years. We donated all the proceeds to charity. Thank you. We've built schools fully funded in Ghana, Guatemala, Kenya. Thank you. And we donated also part of the proceeds to Alzheimer's research for women. Women are twice as likely to experience Alzheimer's than men, twice as likely. And yet most of the research is done on men. And so we did that in the memory of my grandmother who passed of Alzheimer's when I was 7. Some of you know my story. When I was 5 years old, I had a traumatic brain injury. I took a very bad fall in kindergarten, rushed to the emergency room, and lost all this blood. And I just had learning difficulties after that. I was put in special education. I would have these migraines every day when I was 5 and 6 years old. Horrible, debilitating headaches. I just thought it was normal. I had poor focus, poor memory. It took me 3 years longer to learn how to read like all the other kids. And, does that affect your self-worth? I had a lot of self-doubt, a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of the same things that, even as adults, we think about if you're, can you really build this business, right? Can you do these big deals, right? The fears. And so I had struggled with that. When I was 9 years old, I remember I was slowing down the class because I didn't really understand. The teacher was getting frustrated and I was being teased by the other kids. And the teacher, though, came to my defense. She pointed to me in front of the whole class and said, "Leave that kid alone. That's the boy with the broken brain." And she had good intentions, and people could be sincere, but a lot of the people in our lives can be sincere, our family, friends, but they can be sincerely wrong also, because they don't know what you know, right? Like, how many of you have family or friends back home that are like, where are you going, right? And how do you even explain what this is? But because sometimes they don't want to lose you, or they see you progressing, or they don't want you to get your hopes up, right? They can be sincere, but those people could also hold you back, and they can limit you. And that broken brain, her external words became my internal words. You know that self-talk you have inside that makes you doubt yourself? Like, can you really do this? Maybe it's possible for that person on stage or the person next to me, but can I really do it? Or do I deserve it, right? That's why I saw some of the other speakers here that are going to be here, like David Goggins. How many people are David Goggins fans? I've had the chance to work out with him on more than one opportunity. I hope he does something, with you here. But that's a mindset issue, right? Or it's a motivation issue. And that's what's the difference where you take knowledge and really turn it into action. You have Jamie Kern-Lima, who came out, a brand new book called Worthy. And I've had the opportunity to have her on our podcast multiple times. Some of you are familiar with our podcast. We're approaching 100 million downloads. Only 20-minute show, no ads, no sponsors. We just kind of thank you. But I hope you enjoy it because we want to democratize this work out to the world. But you won't take the action if you don't feel like you deserve it. If you don't feel worthy, like Jamie talks about. Or if you're not motivated, like somebody, you don't have to be motivated like Goggins, but to have a certain level of drive, right? And so I think I've unlocked over the past 30 plus years the conditions that will allow you to be more limitless, to redraw the borders and boundaries of what's possible. So let's go into it. I'm going to start with memory first, because I believe the two most costly words in your business are I forgot. I mean, think about the consequence of saying, I forgot to do it, I forgot that meeting, I forgot what they told me, I forgot what I said or what I was gonna say, I forgot what I just, studied, I forgot that person's name. So memory, on the other hand, can make you an extraordinary amount of money, all right? When you could easily remember client information, product information, give speeches or sales scripts or whatever without notes. How many of you feel like that would be an incredible advantage? All right, so I'm going to share with you how to do that today. And here's the thing, there's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's a trained memory and there's an untrained memory. It's one of those things, if you've seen video of me on stage where I memorize 100 people's names or 100 random words or numbers, I always tell people, I don't do this to impress you. I do this to express to you what's possible, because all of you could do that. Regardless of your age, your background, your career, education level, financial situation, gender, history, IQ. I could tell you, when you understand how your brain works, you could work your brain. You just weren't taught. Like school taught you what to learn, math, history, science, Spanish, important class on what to learn, but how many classes were on how to learn? None, right? There's no class called focus or concentration or memory, right? There was no, I always thought it should have been the fourth R in school. They teach you 3 R's. What are they? What are the 3 R's in reading, writing, arithmetic? Obviously spelling is not one of them. But what about recall? What about recall? What about retention? Socrates said learning is remembering. So let me start with that first. There are 3 keys to a better memory. All right, this is going to be out of the 20 things I want you to take away. 3 keys to a better memory. And I want you to write down, even if you've heard me say this before, learn it in a different way. Write down MOM. This is the mother of all principles of memory. M-O-M. The first M, well, I won't even tell you what it stands for. It's an acronym. How many of you honestly have trouble remembering names? Raise your hand. Because you come to this event, I bet 90% of you come here for one of 2 reasons, or both. You either come here for the content, right? You want to learn new things and strategies, actionable practices to level up, your life, your business, your income. You come here for the content, or you come here for the connections, right? Or a combination of both. But if you can't remember the content and you can't remember the people that you meet, then that's a challenge, right? And that's why we wanted to kick off me speaking earlier, because I want to help you to overcome what they call the forgetting curve. The forgetting curve, and you can write this down, when you hear something or you read something once or you listen to it on a podcast, within 48 hours, 2 days, what percentage do you forget? 80%. 80% and above. And so that's a challenge, right? You hear something from a great presenter, but 80% of it is gone within 2 days. So that's why we start with memory first, right? And so MOM, let's say you have trouble remembering names, but there is a suitcase full of cash, right? I don't know how much cash fits in a suitcase. I have no idea what that would be, but a lot of cash. And it's yours, and because we're in Florida, it's tax-free, right? It's yours tax-free if you just remember the name of the next stranger you meet in this room. Raise your hand if you're going to remember that person's name. Raise it up high. Now, how come you're all memory experts all of a sudden? But as a coach, I want to call you on your BS, your belief systems. And your belief system, even right before I got on the stage, somebody came to me and it's like, Jim, I'm so glad you're here. I have a horrible memory. I feel like I'm just getting too old. And I was like, stop. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them, right? If you fight for your limits, you get to keep them. And so many of us, even over the next few days and afterwards, we'll say something that's negative that doesn't empower us, right? Can I really do this? Or this is really not, I'm not able to do this, or some kind of negative thought. And we have to control our minds, right? So many people are shrinking what's possible to fit their minds, when instead, why don't we expand our minds to fit all that's possible, right? And so the first M in mom, that money, represents motivation. So that's the first thing. You will not learn something or even do the things to earn something if you're not motivated. And I'm going to share with you the 3 keys for limitless motivation. To motivate yourself to do the things you need to do, even when you're scared, or how to motivate somebody else to buy or to sell or to invest. All right, there's 3 parts we're going to talk about today. But that's the first thing, is motivation. So how does it relate to remembering names? A lot of people, you don't remember all names, but you don't forget all names either. And remember this, genius leaves clues. When you're doing something exceptionally well, there's something that's going on. There's a method behind the magic. There's always a method behind what looks like magic. And so ask yourself, because you probably remember the people that could be good for your business, or that maybe you're attracted to, or whatever. There's some level of motivation. So why not build that into your interactions? Simple thing you could do during the break when you're meeting someone for the first time, ask yourself, why do I want to remember this person's name? Why? Right? Start with why. I'm going to mention a number of books, right? You read to succeed. If you've seen photos of me online with Oprah or Elon or whoever, people always ask how we connected, and I'll tell you, we connected over books. Our love of reading. Even Warren Buffett, he reads 500 pages a day, right? Because if somebody has decades of experience and they put it into a book, and you could sit down and read that book in a few days, you could download decades in a days. Like, think about that advantage that you have. Decades in a days, right? Besides the fact that reading is such great exercise for your brain. It's the number 1 exercise for your brain. Reading is to your mind what exercise is to your body, right? But it starts with motivation. So ask yourself, why do I want to learn a person's name? Maybe it's to get a referral. Maybe it's to make a deal. Maybe it's to practice these things I learned, from Jim, right? And if you won't get a reason, you won't get the result. Reasons reap results. Even people, if you want them to invest in you or sell to you or go on and on a deal with you, if they don't have a reason that they feel, you won't get the result, right? So it has to go from your head to your heart to your hands. Everything. That's the success formula. You can visualize, have goals in your head, but if you're not acting with your hands, check in with the second H, which is your heart. You have to feel it, right? So the books, I recommend a lot of books, like Start With Why by Simon Sinek. How many of you know this book? How many of you finished that book? Right? So, and I'll give you a couple of tips on how to read faster also as well to help you get through this. Because sometimes we don't finish books if we're not just good at reading, right? So ask yourself, why do I remember the person's name? The O in mom, the second key to improving your memory, which will make you money. Everyone do this. Shake out your hand. Drop your pen or whatever you're holding. Shake out your hand. Make sure your neighbor's doing it. Look at me. You can zoom in on me on camera. All right, shake out your hand. Make a fist, put it to your chin. Now, come on, where's your chin, everybody? The O in mom stands for observation. Observation. A lot of times, and again, as your coach, not as a speaker, but as a coach that cares about you, that wants to push you to the next level, call you on your stuff, you can remember a name. Your brain is the ultimate supercomputer. It's one word, 2 words, maybe, max. You can remember it, but are you observing it? Are you really even hearing the name? The art of memory is the art of attention. The art of memory is the art of attention. And here's the thing, when it comes to your attention, your focus, it's not something you have, it's something that you do. So a big part of the book Limitless, and when you're reading it, what I'm doing is I'm taking and transforming the nouns in your life and turning them into verbs. What does that mean? You don't have focus, you do it. It's a verb. You don't have energy, there's a process for generating energy. You don't have motivation. You're like, Jim, that's the problem. I have no focus, energy, or motivation. You don't have it, you do it. There's a process. And when you turn into a verb, you regain and retain your agency, your power, as opposed to waking up and say, I hope I have focus today to do my work, or I hope I have motivation today, right? Hope is not a strategy, right? So O is observation. And so you want to listen. And even if you write down the word listen in your notes, and here's a little brain exercise to kind of wake up your brain. Scramble the letters and see if you can spell out another word. Don't say it out loud, but look at the letters in the word listen and scramble the letters and try to spell another word. What word does it spell? Silent. Silent. So to remember someone's name, just be quiet, be silent. And you can remember 1 or 2 words, I promise you. The last M in mom, your motivation, observation, are the methods. And I'll share with you a number of methods today in terms of how to remember names or client information, speeches without notes. But the reason I put it last is if you don't have the motivation or the observation, the methods are helpful, right? But 80% of success is the psychology. How many of you believe that, honestly? All right, so let's go through some of the methods right now. There's a strategy to remember names that I use when I'm meeting somebody for the first time, and it's called Be Suave. Be Suave. And I want you to use it and test it the next few days in a safe environment like we are here. So before you come down from your rooms, you're checking yourself in the mirror, say, I'm gonna be suave, all right? These are the keys to remembering names and faces. I believe your ability to remember someone's name is the #1 business etiquette skill there is. Because before you sell anything, you sell what? Yourself. And people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And when we forget somebody's name, what are we telling them? We don't care, right? So it doesn't matter what you say or sell after that, right? If you mess up their name. And so remembering names, #1 business etiquette, definitely the #1 network skill there is, right? Networking skill. So be suave. And you don't have to do everything here. Even if you just did 2 or 3 things, it'll up your level of remembering names. Because if you could walk into a room of strangers and leave saying goodbye to every single person you met, who do they all remember? You. And that's a standout skill. So the B stands for believe. It's an acronym, Be Suave. Believe. If you believe you can or believe you can, either way, what? You're right. And Henry Ford said that. Your beliefs, what's a belief? How would you define what a belief is? It's like a truth. It's an idea that you're certain about. Let me show you what a belief is. Stand up, everyone. Stand up. You're like, oh, he's one of those guys. Make some distance from the person next to you. So spread out a little bit. I'm going to show you what a belief is, and you're going to directly tie this metaphor to making money. How many of you would like to make 25, even 50% more in your income? Raise your hand. All right. Let me show you where it is in your beliefs. All right. So shake out your body. All right. Stop. Notice where your feet are and keep it stationary. What I'd like you to do is with your right hand point forward. Everyone with your right hand point forward. Your other right hand, sir. Okay, good. All right, and now turn, without moving your feet, turn to your right as far as you could go. And take a mental snapshot of where you're pointing. So turn to your right and notice where you're pointing. All right, come back center. Now watch this. We're gonna do a 30-second mental exercise that's gonna blow your mind. I want you to empty your hands and put your hands by your side, not in your pocket. Take a deep breath. Exhale, close your eyes, and just breathe normally. With your eyes closed, breathe normally, just relax. And I'm gonna walk you through a quick visualization exercise that we use with athletes. We do mental training for the NBA, the MLB, the NFL, the National Hockey League. It's not just physical training, it's mental training, right? And I want you, with your eyes closed, breathing normally, I want you to imagine you're pointing with your right hand forward again. Just imagine. Imagine you're raising your right hand pointing forward, but this time you're gonna turn to your right in your mind. Imagine you're going twice as far as you did the first time. See and feel what it feels like going twice as far. And it's pleasant, like you're made out of rubber. You're getting a great stretch. With your eyes closed still, see and feel yourself going 3 times around. Imagine you're going 3 times around. And even if you can't imagine it, imagine that you can imagine it. 3 times around, getting a great stretch, like you're Gumby. And then one more time with a smile on your face, thinking, what does this have to do with anything? See and feel yourself going 4 times around. You're pointing forward and turning 4 times around. All right, everybody, watch this. Open your eyes. I want you to point forward with your right hand and turn to your right as far as you can now go. All right, clap if you went further the second time. Have a seat, have a seat. So my question for you is the obvious question. Were you physically capable of turning that far the first time? Yes, right? Nobody took a yoga class when my eyes were closed, right? You were able to go that far. Where was the limitation, if there was one? In your mind, right? And you could say, I didn't have a belief on how far I could turn. How many beliefs do you think you have? Right? You have countless beliefs. And please write this down. This is probably one of the biggest takeaways from this morning for me. All behavior is belief driven. All behavior is belief driven. If you want to create a new result in your life, more money, a healthier body, a better relationship, whatever it is, if you want to create a new result, you need to do a new behavior, correct? Yes? In order to do that new behavior, it's required a belief that says that behavior is possible, because all behavior is belief driven. Your brain is this incredible supercomputer, and your self-talk is the program it will run. So if you tell yourself, I'm not good at remembering people's names, you will not remember the name of the next person you meet, because you program your supercomputer not to. That's how powerful your mind is. If you truly understood how powerful your mind is, you wouldn't say or think something you didn't want to be true. I'm just going to let that kind of land. If you knew how powerful your mind is, you wouldn't say or think something you didn't want to be true. And that's not to say you have one negative thought, it ruins your life. Of course not. Any more than eating that donut will ruin your life. But if you ate that donut 20 times a day, every single day, will there be a consequence? Right? And so you need to own your self-talk. Some of you raise your hand if you went further when you turned the second time. Raise your hand. Some of you went 25, 50% or more, right? Did you work harder? No. And so the limiting belief was in your mind. What if you could go 25, 50% further in your income than this month or next month, right? This quarter. without working necessarily harder. But this is overcoming the learned helplessness, right? If you believe you can or can't. And that's why we talk about mindset and unraveling these lies in Limitless. A lie stands for a limited idea entertained. It's not true you're too old. It's not true you can't do it. It's not true fill in the blank, right? But the truth is usually the opposite. And so that's the B. Believe you can, believe you can't. So even if you find yourself saying, I don't have a great memory, just add a little word at the end like yet. I don't have a great memory yet. Is that fair? It just opens up the possibility. The E in Be Suave, I'm gonna go through the rest really fast, is exercise. And I don't mean physical exercise, I mean practice. Because like anything, practice makes what? Progress. Practice makes progress. So memory is a skill. There's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's a trained memory and an untrained memory. But there was, again, no training in school or in our work environment on how to improve our memory, the most important thing. So here's the thing. When I talk about practice, like I'm very good at remembering names, but I didn't get much better after the first month or two of practicing. Because once you know how to do something, once you know how to drive a car, you know how to drive a car, right? Once you know how to type, you know how to type. And usually takes like 30, 60 days, and it's just once you know how to tie your shoes, you know how to tie your shoes. So once you know how to remember names, it's just something that you do. Is that fair? So the bad news is it takes effort, exercise, practice. The good news, it doesn't take as much as you think. All right? And remember that Jim Rohn quote that said, what you practice in private, you're rewarded for in public, right? So do the practice. You practice this for a few weeks, you're gonna be able to remember most names, all right? And it'll serve you for the rest of your life. So that's the E. The suave, the S, you meet somebody, the S stands for you say the name. Once you hear their name, they introduce themselves, you say it right back to them, right? Tyler, it's wonderful to meet you. Katie, it's a real pleasure. You repeat the name once, because then you get to hear it twice, once from them and once for yourself, right? Plus, sometimes when you're meeting somebody, it's an environment like this where there's lots of ambient sounds and noises that could distract you. Better to get corrected at the front as opposed to, you don't have a 20-minute conversation with someone you just met named Ted and say goodbye, Ed, right? So it's better to be corrected up front, right? So say it. The U in suave, use the name. Use it 3 or 4 times in the conversation. And I want you to practice this when you're connecting, right? Because this is a partnership gathering, right? The collaboration, somebody that you could do a deal with, right? So when you're meeting these individuals, practice this. Use their name. Don't abuse it. Don't use it in every sentence, but use it 3 or 4 times, right? The A in suave, and this is really great for people who you meet somebody and they have a different name, like a name you haven't heard of before, you're unfamiliar with. A, ask. What's everyone's favorite subject? Themselves, right? And what can you ask about a person's name? What does it mean? How do you spell it? Who are you named after, right? And so like, where's it from? All these questions, right? And people appreciate that. And they tell you, like I remember doing a training for one of the country's largest insurance companies, and the training director's name was Nankita. I was like, wow, that's a beautiful name. I was like, where's it from? How do you spell it? What does it mean? And there's a large group of people, our coworkers. I said, what does it mean? And she paused, she looked at her coworkers, and she said, it means graceful falling waters. I was like, wow, and yeah, I got a similar reaction from her coworkers. And I was like, it made me like think, how long have you worked here? She said, told me how many years. With most of these people, yeah, a lot of them were at my wedding. And I said to her coworkers, how many of you knew that's what Nankita's name meant? Out of hundreds of people, how many raised their hand? Not one person. Remember, a name is the sweetest sound to a person's ears. So ask about a person's name. And finally, the V and the E. The V stands for visualize. How many of you are much better with faces than you are with names? You go to someone and say, I remember your face, but I forgot your name. You never go to someone and say the opposite. You never go to someone and say, I remember your name, but I forgot your face. right? I don't even know what that means, right? But the reason why you tend to remember what you see is your visual cortex takes up more real estate than your other senses. And you tend to remember what you see better. And a picture is worth what? 1,000 words. Even when you got on the plane last time, it doesn't say no smoking or fasten your seatbelt. There's an image, right? So we think in pictures. That's why we teach people how to read based on pictures, not on sound. So we get people on average reading 3 times faster with better comprehension. Reading something in 20 minutes that normally takes an hour, part of it is through visualization. And so you tend to remember what you see and try seeing what you want to remember. So if a person's name is David, when I meet a David and I'm talking to you out of this room, I for a split second imagine I have a slingshot and I'm just pegging them on their nose. And the slingshot represents David because why? David and Goliath, right? That's kind of my little memory trick. I meet someone named Mary, and for a split second, I imagine she's holding 2 lambs, because Mary had, little lambs. And so, and I'm not sharing this, by the way, with the person, right? This is in the privacy of your own mind. I meet someone named Bob, I imagine we're bobbing for apples together, right? You meet someone named Mark, and for a split second, I imagine I take out a marker and put a check mark on their forehead. And it sounds so childish, but who are the fastest learners? Children, right? How many of you have children? Raise your hand. How many of you once were a child? Raise your hand. How fast do kids learn a musical instrument or another language compared to an adult, right? Because they're willing to be playful a lot. So that's how they remember names. They'll rhyme them or make fun of. How many of you had your name made fun of growing up? I certainly did, right? But that's a way for kids to encode the information, because information by itself is forgettable, but information tied with emotion becomes unforgettable. And we'll talk about how to do that. So a little memory trick for V in SWAB is visualize. Person's name's Carol, you imagine them singing Christmas carols. Because when you say goodbye an hour later from that networking cocktail party, and you're like, oh, what was this person doing? They were singing Christmas carols. What's their name? Carol. This technique is to overcome what I call the 6-second syndrome. When somebody tells you something, like their name, you have 6 seconds to do something with it. Otherwise, what? It's gone, right? So saying it and using it and asking, visualizing it, helps you to take it and put it into your memory, right? And finally, the E in Be Suave, end. You always want to end the conversation saying goodbye using their name. Patrick, thank you so much for coming. Dorothy, it's so nice meeting you. Because again, if you could walk into a room and meet 20 strangers and leave saying goodbye to all 20 by name, who do they all remember? They're all going to remember you. And that's the standout skill, right? So we talked about MOM and we talked about Be Suave. That's at least 10 different things that we're talking about. Now let me give you the strategy to learn any subject or skill faster. I told you in the beginning, I opened the conversation saying the key, to succeeding in life, in my estimation, is your ability to learn rapidly. That the faster you can learn, the faster you can earn, right? And so what I want to focus on, I'm going to give you, there are 4 keys to learning any subject or skill faster. And I hope you use this the next few days, because you're learning a lot of key information that can level up your brain and your business. But are you really learning it? Or are you just hearing it, right? So 4 keys to learn anything fast. FAST. I'm giving you a lot of acronyms, so hopefully you're going to be able to remember most of these. Think about a subject or skill you want to be an expert in. The F, when you're training and you're learning, is forget. And this is weird coming from a memory coach, but one of the reasons you won't learn something is because you feel like you know it already. Does that make sense? And that's the thing, the half-life of information is getting shorter and shorter. There's always new knowledge, skills, and abilities, new research, right? New trends, new economics, something that's going on. And you have to forget what you currently know to learn something new. Because your mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's what? Open, right? So you want to forget about what you know temporarily so you can learn something new. The other thing I want you to forget, this is a big one, distractions. And I know it's easier said than done, But how many of you, in order to keep up with everything, you multitask a lot? Now, the research shows, and it's pretty conclusive, you're not actually multitasking. You think you are, but really what you're doing is something called task switching. You're going from one task to another. And the challenge is, it hurts you in 3 ways that's affecting your profitability and your performance. Number 1, you lose time. You're multitasking thinking you're going to gain time, but you're actually losing it. Because when you go from one task to another, emails to phone call, whatever, it could take 5 to 10 minutes to regain your focus. So you lose time. The second reason you don't want to multitask, you want to monotask, as they call it, is you're going to make more mistakes if you multitask. Your brain can't do 2 cognitive activities well at the same time. Think about driving and texting, right? You're going to make mistakes over time. And I train a lot of doctors, and surgeons have been shown to make more mistakes when they multitask during operations, surgical errors, because they're trying to do too much at once. But if that's not reason enough to focus on one thing, not only do you lose time and make mistakes, you use up a lot of energy. How many of you struggle with a little bit of mental fatigue throughout the day, brain fog? Part of it could be when you're focused on one activity and you do something else, you have to shut this down, turn this network on, right, different part of your brain, and it uses a lot of blood glucose, right? And your brain is only 2% of your body mass, but it requires 20% of the energy. So it's an energy hog. So sometimes you're doing too much at the same time and you get fatigued, right? So that's the first part. F, forget about what you know, forget about distraction, focus on one thing at a time. And one of the best ways to focus is to ask yourself this question. It's a question I ask all the time. What's the best use of this moment? Because your focus, the questions will activate a part of your brain called your reticular activating system. If you want to look it up, it's RAS for short. And your RAS, your brain mostly is trying to delete information. Because if it let everything in, we would be overloaded and overwhelmed. We would go insane. So what it decides to let in are the things that are important to you, and it's highlighted by your RAS by asking questions. And ask and you shall what? Receive. Like 3 questions I ask all the time, because I'm going to go to the A. The A in FAST is active. Learning is not a spectator sport. Your brain doesn't learn by consumption. It learns through creativity and co-creativity, right? We're co-creating this, getting in your body. So one of the ways of being active is taking notes. And if you want some really, in the book Limitless, we talk about some advanced whole brain note-taking techniques, right? But also asking the right questions. Here are 3 questions I ask all the time. Remember I said knowledge is potential power. It becomes power when we what? This is the active part. When we what? When we utilize it. 3 questions to turn knowledge into power. And I ask this the next, like write it down on your notes, ask it throughout this event. How can I use this? I'm obsessed with this question. How can I use this? Because I start getting answer, right? Second question, why must I use this? So you're learning something from my session or future sessions. You ask, well, how can I use this? And then why must I use this? So it goes from your head to your heart. So you have some drive and purpose around it, right? A reason to get a result. And then the third question I ask all the time, when will I use this? I think the number 1 productivity tool we have is our calendar. And if you don't put in your calendar, it's not getting done. Can we be honest? Like you say you're going to work out, but if you don't schedule that, like you schedule meetings and client, get-togethers, investor presentations, whatever, right? It's not going to get done. So if you don't write it down, and writing it down is the first way of taking something that's invisible and making it visible for yourself. Okay? So 3 questions make it more active. The S in FAST stands for state. State. When I say state, what do I mean by that? It's your mood, right? It's like an emotional snapshot of your mind and your body, how you feel. Because all learning is state dependent. This is probably the second biggest takeaway, principle. All learning is state dependent. And who controls how you feel? You do, right? let me show you the 3 states that we cultivate with our clients. Remember I said, who are the fastest learners? Who are they? Children, and they play, right? And they're willing to make mistakes. How many of you are willing to play just the rest of this session with me? All right. Where's the energy here? How many? All right, stand up. What I want you to do now, because part of this focus is meeting new people, right? Getting referrals, making new connections, is people next to you. It's not just the people on stage. I want you to meet 3 or 4 new people and get into a group. So move around, introduce yourself, get in groups of 3, 4, or 5, go. Introduce yourself.
Thank you for being a friend.
All right, here's the game. All learning is state dependent. There are 3 emotional states that you could cultivate to help you be a faster learner and faster earner, okay? And I'm gonna use, how many of you growing up used to pretend you were like a superhero or a fire doctor or whatever, right? You used to play pretend? We're gonna pretend we're superheroes. You know, when I was a kid, I couldn't read. I taught myself how to read by reading comic books. And something about, how many of you love like superhero geeks out? So those are like that's kind of like my thing. And so there's something about the comic books brought the words to life and it taught me how to read, right? So we're gonna play superheroes, and I'm gonna show you 3 superheroes. We're gonna do their moves, and we're gonna cultivate their emotional state, all right? The first emotional state, you will learn faster when you're having fun. How many of you enjoy having fun? Great. So the superhero I use that embodies it is Spider-Man, right? He has fun when he's in battle and doing his thing. So what I'm gonna ask you to do, when I say 1, 2, 3, you're gonna show your new friends Spider-Man's move. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Wait. Shh. Where did the sound effects come from? That was awesome. But what I want you to, instead of sound effects, I want you to say fun, but feel it in your body, all right? 1, 2, 3, fun. No, really fun. Ready? 1, 2, 3, fun. All right. The second emotional state is that of focus. It is a state. Focus is an emotional state of flow. And for me, there are a number of superheroes, but for me, it's Black Panther, all right? So what I want you to do, Black Panther is 2 fists, you make an X, and that X for me symbolizes focus. Like how many of you played with, on a hot day, a magnifying glass outside? And what would you do with it? Burn ants? Okay. I was hoping it was like leaves or something like that. But notice that magnifying glass, that point that's doing the burning is very sharp. It's very bright. And notice the words we use. When we say somebody is sharp or they are bright, what are we saying? That they are what? Yeah, they're intelligent, they're smart. Maybe they're not smart or intelligent. Maybe they're better focused. Does that make sense? So this X represents focal point. A focal point that moves everything, right? The most important thing. Because it's not about time management, it's about priority management. The most important thing is to keep the most important things the most important things. Yeah. Priority management. All right, so when I say Black Panther, you're gonna make the X and you're gonna say focus to your new friends. Ready? And feel focused. 1, 2, 3. All right, one more time. 1, 2, 3. And finally, the third emotion, if you have fun and you have focus, is you need confidence, which is a feeling, right? And a superhero that embodies it, for me, Wonder Woman. Yeah. All the sheroes. So what's Wonder Woman? How many of you saw the TED Talk with Amy Cuddy? It was one of the top 10 TED Talks of all time, where she talked about the power pose. So put your hands on your waist, put your shoulders back. And what she was saying is she was showing research out of Harvard that when you do this pose, it actually increases levels of testosterone, where you would do this before you go into a meeting or a sales presentation. right? No, watch this. Look it up. So Wonder Woman, power pose, right? But I want you to feel confidence, right? So in a moment, I'm gonna count to 3. You're gonna go like this and say confidence. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Confidence. All right, really feel it. 1, 2, 3. Confidence. All right, perfect. So do you remember now remember, there's no such thing as a good or bad brain. There's a trained brain and an untrained brain. And we're exercising your brain, right? So do you remember the first 3? So I want you to do Spider-Man. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Fun. And now think about focus. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Focus. And I want you to think about confidence. 1, 2, 3. All right. Now here's the game. I want you with your new friends, just go turn your backs together. Like turn face away from each other. All right? So the best of your ability, just face the other way, go back to back. And here's the game. How many of you like to win? Raise your hand. Of course, right? All alphas. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I am going to say 1, 2, 3. When I say 3, you're going to turn around and pick the superhero and their word and do their move and say it out loud, right? So if it's Spider-Man, you're going fun, or Black Panther, you're saying focus, or Wonder Woman, you're saying confidence. How you win is you have to match your new friends. All of them have to be doing the same exact thing. If you all match and you won, what's the sound you make when you celebrate? All right. Now, if just one person doesn't match, then you lose. What's the sound you make when you lose? Oh, that was a lot more natural. A little concerned about that, all right? So the goal is you all match. Ready? Let's go back to back. Think about the superhero that you want to animate. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Raise your hand if you won. Raise your hand if you won. Raise your hand if you won. All right. Repeat after me. Shh. We need way more winners in this room, okay? Go back to back. I'm going to give you another chance. Shh. Quiet your mind. Quiet your mind. Shh. I'm going to give you one chance. Quiet your mind. You're using your mind meld like Professor Xavier, the X-Men. I want you to just clear your mind and you're thinking, is he going to change it on me? You're thinking, yeah, don't worry. If it's not you messing up, it's totally her. Don't worry about it. All right, think about your superhero. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. High five your new friends. High five your new friends. Have a seat. Have a seat. High five your new friends. Have a seat. Have a seat. I'm going to go on slides. All right, shh, have a seat. A couple more things. Shh. Remember this. The key to memory, which we established is like the lead domino that makes everything easier. It's information. Put your hand out and say information. Combined with emotion becomes long-term memory. You remember things that make you feel something. Right? How many of you, there's a song, you could hear a couple of notes, take you back to when you were a teenager? Because it's the information times emotion. How many of you, it's a food or a fragrance that could take you back to when you were a child? Right? But what was the primary emotion you felt back in school sitting in class? Boredom? No, okay, let's take boredom. On a scale of 0 to 10, what's boredom? 0. And if it's information times emotion, is a long-term memory. If that emotion is boredom or 0, what's anything times 0? 0. And you wonder why you forgot the periodic table, right? Because the emotion. So even right now, sit the way you'd be sitting if you're very focused and you're very interested in what I was saying. Sit the way you'd be sitting. You're extremely interested in why do you even have to move? But I want to just point out to you, that your physiology affects your psychology, and you know how to change your state. Because you are if you're here, you're a thermostat, not a thermometer. A thermometer, all it does, it just reacts to the environment. That's all a thermometer does. A thermostat doesn't do that. A thermostat gauges, it knows the temperature, it knows what's going on, right? But it sets a temperature, and what happens is the environment. The environment reacts to you, right? And that's what leadership is, taking this invisible. Because you set a temperature, you set a standard, a goal, a vision, and then the world responds to you, right? That's how you become more limitless. This is the Limitless Model. I know most of you have Limitless. This is the foundation of all my work. This is the key to making transformation in your life, because you control the controllables. There's a quote in Limitless that says, life is the letter C between B and D. Please write this down. Life is the letter C between B and D. Life is C between B and D. B stands for birth, D stands for death. Life, C, choice. Our lives are the sum total of all the choices we've made up to this point. And I truly believe that these difficult times, they can distract you, these difficult times can diminish you, or these difficult times, they can develop you, right? We decide, right? We could either decide to get bitter or we could decide to get better. It's the choices that we make. And there are 3 choices that you always have agency for, because the key is you control the controllables. You can always control your mindset, your motivation, and your methods. That's the key to becoming limitless. Because if you feel limited in any area, limitless is not about being perfect. It's about advancing and progressing, right? If you feel stuck, the opposite of being limitless, you're not making progress in your health or in your finances or some area you're in a box. Like draw a 3D box on your piece of paper. That 3 dimensions, the 3 forces that contain you are keeping you stuck are the same 3 forces that will liberate you. And those 3 forces are represented by these 3 circles: your mindset, your motivation, and the methods that you're using. Mindset we talked about a little bit. If you believe you can or believe you can't, either way, you're right. 3 things that will fall under mindset: what I believe is possible. Write this down for mindset. What I believe is possible. What I believe I'm capable of. You might believe it's possible for somebody else, but if your belief is, I'm not capable of it, you're still going to be stuck in that box. You see that? And the third thing, what I believe I deserve, which is why I think, Jamie Kern-Lima's presentation is so important, because about worthiness, because that's that internal thermostat. Because that's where you self-sabotage if you don't believe you deserve it or you're capable of it. That's why mindset is so important. So a third of the book Limitless is about how to change those limiting beliefs that hold you back. But you could have limitless mindset and still be stuck in that box because you're not motivated to get out of that box. Does that make sense? So where the first one, mindset, is helping you overcome self-sabotage, your motivation overcomes procrastination. And there's 3 keys for limitless motivation. All right? Can I go 5 minutes over? It's okay? All right, perfect. There's 3 keys for limitless motivation. Here's the formula. And I can't tell, this is the takeaway. P times E times S3. If you want to motivate yourself to do things you're not doing, or to motivate someone to buy or invest or to sell to you, or get your kids to clean their room, it's the same formula. P times E times S3. P is purpose, going back to a reason. And it's not an intellectual reason. You need to feel the benefits that will come from taking action. If you don't feel it, you won't do it consistently. Do you see the difference between knowing? Everyone knows intellectually exercise is good for you. But if you don't feel either the pain or pleasure of following through or not following through, you're not going to do it consistently. Does that make sense? All right, so that's why we start with why. So that's the purpose. The E is energy. Because a lot of times you're not motivated because you're tired and you're exhausted, right? If you have a newborn and you haven't slept in 3 nights, you're not going to be very motivated to make those calls or to exercise, right? So that's why we talk about in the book and our podcast, we've done 400 episodes, a lot of it's on brain energy. What are the best brain foods? how to optimize your sleep, and we could talk about this during the Q&A, how to manage your stress, because stress leaches a lot of energy, right? So energy is so important, and you don't have energy, you generate it, right? There's process for creating energy. And then finally, you could have a limitless purpose and limitless energy and still not follow through because you lack S3, small, simple steps. Sometimes we procrastinate and we're not motivated because this goal is just too big. It's something we haven't done before. It's too abstract. And a confused mind won't do anything. Even if you want people to invest in you or sell to you or buy from you, they won't do it if it's too big and too abstract. So maybe working out is good for you, but if you haven't done it, that's too big. A small, simple step, that's what S3 stands for. Put on your running shoes, right? If you can't get your kids to floss their teeth, get them to floss one tooth. That's a small, simple step. I said leaders are readers, and I want everyone in the room to commit to reading 30 minutes a day. But if you're not doing that, opening up the book is a small, simple step. Reading one line is a small, simple step. Because your kids aren't going to stop at one tooth, and you're not going to stop reading one line. Inch by inch, it's a cinch. Yard by yard, it's too hard. Does that make sense? And how do you find your small, simple step in business? Ask this question and write this verbatim. I ask this question 20 times a day. When I feel stuck or stalled, I don't feel motivated, I ask myself this question. What is the tiniest action I could take right now that will give me progress towards this goal where I can fail? I'll say it again. What is the tiniest action I could take right now that will give me progress towards this goal where I can't fail? Because even if people aren't investing or buying, or maybe they have the means, energy, money, or whatever, and they have purpose because you're touching them emotionally, because we don't buy logically, we buy emotionally, you know that, right? Maybe you're making it too hard and complex for them. Break it down into a small, simple step. And little by little, a little becomes a lot. And then finally, when we talk about limitless mindset and motivation, you could have limitless mindset and motivation, believe it's possible and have the drive, but you could still be stuck in that box in your finances or in your brain or your reading speed because you're using poor methods, right? The techniques or the strategies you're using are outdated and are not as effective. That's what I say for reading, because most of you could read 3 or 4 times faster, but the last time you took a class on reading, how old were you? 6? So you're still learning the same way as you learned, you're still performing the same way you did when you were 6 years old, you were last trained. So the difficulty and demand has increased a lot, but how we learn it hasn't. So that growing gap creates stress, overload, like you're taking a sip of water out of a fire hose. So I'm all about upgrading these skills. That's the methods, right? And our podcast is free, the book is, it's going to charity. A lot of methods are available, right? But I'll give you the one that I want to just leave you with. It's personalized learning. I think this is the future of education, future of personal development and professional development. Have you heard about personalized medicine based on your genetics? Or personalized nutrition based on your microbiome? I realized after 32 years of teaching that everybody learns a little different. And there are 4 primary brain types. And I use these animals as a representation of that. And if you are one of these animals, then you could take this 4-minute assessment. It's free, and I'll give you strategies on how to read, improve your memory, improve your focus, how to sell better, how to negotiate better based on brain types, all right? So here's the thing, it's a code, C-O-D-E. The C is the cheetah, and if you're a cheetah, you love action, right? That's your trait. You love to act, you thrive in fast-paced environments. You adapt very quickly, you have strong intuition. The O in code are the owls, and these are very logical beings. How many of you know an owl? They love data, they love facts, they love numbers. They make decisions different than a cheetah. They buy different than a cheetah, right? Because an owl wants to know the research, and the numbers, right? The D in code are the dolphins, and the dolphins are your creatives. These are people that have a vision, they can see things. And even when you sell to them, when you could insert your product or service into their future vision, that's how they That's their criteria for moving forward, to be motivated, right? And then finally, the E in code are your elephants, and these are your empaths. People have high levels of compassion. They are your community builders. They want people to feel seen and heard. But this affects your communication style. And once you understand your brain type, get curious about the people around you also, because this is how we hire on our team. This is how we manage on our team. Because once you understand their brain type, you could change everything. The last thing I'm going to give you, because we're going to go to Q&A now. I mentioned that for me, I struggled all through until I was 18 years old and found a mentor to teach me these things or get me on this path. And I do a lot of corporate training at Facebook, Nike, Google, SpaceX. And I was doing a training for 20th Century Fox Studios. I help executives speed read, improve their focus, and so on. And I do a half-a-day training on a Friday. And the CEO and the chairman said, this was the best professional training we've ever done. Thank you so much. And as a thank you, he walks me around the studio a lot. I've never been on a studio lot. This was in 2013. And I saw this movie poster of Wolverine. And it was for the new Wolverine Hugh Jackman movie coming out in a few months. And I just made a comment saying, I can't wait for that movie to come out. And he picks up his phone. And 5 minutes later, I'm in his theater with 3D glasses watching Hugh Jackman fight all these super ninjas, right? The best Friday afternoon ever. And afterwards, he comes to get me and he says, Jim, how was the movie? And I was like, this is great. And I start telling him, because I feel like a 9-year-old on a Friday, you don't know this, but I couldn't read. I had a brain injury and I was a broken brain and I taught myself how to rewrite comic books. My favorite comic book was Wolverine and his X-Men. And I was telling him, not because it's because the X-Men, if you know the story, they didn't fit in. They're mutants. And I felt like I didn't fit in, right? I was very different than all the other kids. My parents immigrated here. My dad lost his parents when he was 13. We didn't speak the language. We lived in the back of a laundromat that my mom worked at. I felt just very, very different. And I'm telling him this, and he's like, Jim, I didn't know you because the big thing was I tell him that when I was 9 years old, true story, I found out in the comic book that the X-Men, their school was in Westchester, New York, where I lived outside this New York City, north of the city. And I swear to you, when I was 9 years old, every weekend I'd be on my bicycle trying to find this school. That's how real it was in my mind, because I wanted to find my superpowers and I wanted to find my friends, right, where I fit in. And I'm telling this to the chairman of the studio, and he's like, Jim, I didn't know you like superheroes. We have another 30 days of filming a new X-Men movie in Montreal. Do you want to go on set? And what do you think I say, right? I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. What can I do for you? He's like, do the same thing you did for us. Teach them how to speed read scripts, you focus in front of camera, memorize their lines. I'm like, I could totally do that. The next morning, Saturday, I'm the last one that gets on their plane. They call it the X-Jet. And the entire cast of X-Men is on the plane. And I don't even see Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman. I see Professor X, Wolverine. And I'm sitting between Halle Berry and Jennifer Lawrence going to Montreal, right? And I'm brain training the cast and the crew. When we land the next day, where do you think the very first shot they picked up filming was? In the X-Men school, right? And me, as a 9-year-old boy in my spirit, I was just like seeing my superheroes come alive. So I spent a week with them, but here's the punchline. I go home and there's a package waiting for me, and it's the size of like a television, and it's this photograph. It's me and the entire cast of X-Men. I'm the Asian dude in the, like, who photoshopped that Asian dude in the middle? But Jennifer Lawrence and Halle Berry and just everybody. But more important than that, there was a note from the chairman, and I'll leave you with this. It said, Jim, thank you so much for sharing your superpowers with all of us. I know you've been looking for your superhero school since you were a child. Here's your class photo. So thank you. I get a little emotional about this, but the reason I say this is because think about that progression, right? My two biggest challenges growing up were learning. For those of you who are on the cusp, Maybe you feel like I did, self-doubt, imposter syndrome. You believe other people could do it, but you just haven't got any traction in that. Every day in the most formidable years, like I was called, I had these situations, and my two biggest challenges were learning. And because of it, I never knew the answer. My superpower was shrinking. Like I literally would collapse because I want to take up less space because I didn't want to be called on or bullied, right? So I'd always sit all the way in the back and to myself and eat by myself, that kind of thing. And so public speaking, I just never did. So my two biggest challenges, my fears, were public speaking and learning. And the universe has a sense of humor because what do? I just public speak every day on this thing called learning. But it's a reminder that your struggles can be strengths. That with challenge comes change. That adversity could be your advantage. That there is a version of yourself and your business that's patiently waiting. And the goal is we show up every single day for ourselves until we're introduced. Thank you very much, everybody.